Welcome to your new SideQuest podcast with the intention of helping you through the game of life with mindful reframing and awareness as we all move through this journey called the human experience. It's time to level up. Hello everyone, welcome to your new SideQuest, Escaping the Suffering. This is Derek.
And this is Zach.
In this episode, episode 20, we are gonna go deeper on a topic that we briefly talked about before in our mental fapping episode surrounding the idea of escaping discomfort.
So today we're going to talk about how some people that we know from our social groups use substances frequently like alcohol, recreational drugs, and attend social events like festivals to the point where they get shit-faced, blacked out, or even sick due to their decisions.
We kind of question whether or not this is really about finding joy in these things versus using it as an escape.
Mm-hmm. So, Derek, talk about something that you do in your life where you're trying to escape maybe some form of discomfort.
So, when I feel kind of like in a situation where I have like high anxiety and discomfort, I usually just fap. I fap it out.
A lot of guys do that.
I don't know, because we had this discussion before where I mentioned to you before that sometimes I use fapping as a way to release tension versus escape.
Oh, yeah.
Because in general, I have a pretty high drive, and that physical release kind of like releases that tension so that I can be productive versus, escaping the uncomfortable feelings of having so much to do, all this anxiety, and me just being afraid of getting started. Like, once I get the deed done, I actually am quite efficient and productive in whatever I need to do that day.
Wow, yeah, that's opposite for me, because like whenever I fap, it's like I don't want to do anything. I'm like basically a vegetable.
Yeah, that's actually quite interesting, more so because I've been told that from like many girls before that, once a dude, like releases their
vital essence,
their life force, they're basically just dead. And versus when I do it, it's like I'm full of like just energy to be productive. And I also can go again within like 15 minutes. So I know I'm just like a weird, rare specimen, but that's actually how I operate. I feel like people in general are just so uncomfortable with sitting in those feelings of like discomfort, those like anxiety or like the stress,
and they're not even aware of where it stems from too, because their discomfort could either be physical, it could be emotional, it could even be spiritual too. And I really like how you described how your emotional discomfort prompts you to release physically so that you can get started on your projects and you can be more productive in your day.
By the way, how do you deal with discomfort?
I do the same thing. In fact, I actually did it just yesterday.
But what were you avoiding, or what were you trying to escape from?
Well, I know that one of my emotional discomforts is when I'm looking for familiarity, because I don't know, maybe I just had a stressful week and I need something to feel safe again. So by releasing and by fapping and releasing, that brings me into a familiar state of feeling comfortable, feeling at home, feeling at peace. But this is just the habitual pattern of me like escaping.
Yeah, because it actually can get in the way of things too, right? Like like you said yesterday, we had a foodie event that I invited you to, and I was like, "Hey Zach, where are you at?" And then like an hour later, you're like, "What did you say?"
I said I fap and schlep.
You basically missed the whole event because you decided to fap.
Yeah, because I was actually doing back-to-back gigs. So like 5 a.m. I woke up that morning, and then I like I filmed this triathlon all the way till like 10, and it was in the hot sun too. So by that time I was like already beat, I was like,
That's valid though.
Yeah.
That's a valid excuse to fap and nap.
I was already beat, so I was like, why don't I just beat some more?
That's a good one. That's a good one.
But anyway, yeah, so it was just like a week of like hard work. And so I was like, you know what? This is my time to just roost and rest right now.
So, did you use that method to escape?
I think it was more so like a mechanism to like relax for me. Like, you know how like anyone else would use recreational drugs or drink alcohol, right? It's to like wind down. But I did have moments during that week where like I just felt emotional discomfort. Like I needed validation. I needed to feel seen and wanted, and things like fapping and watching corn were familiar ways of like actually like soothing myself. It's an act of soothing.
Of self-soothing.
Self-soothing.
I totally understand that. Which brings us to the idea of wondering, is that the same self-soothing mechanisms that people use when they're like in discomfort and they're using alcohol, drugs, and like going to these social events, getting shit-faced? That could possibly be the same idea, right?
Yeah, some people actually, when they use drugs and alcohol, they're actually self-medicating, or they're trying to fix a chemical imbalance in their brains by, abusing these drugs sometimes. And then, other people, they may just find discomfort in their lives because they're trying to escape it. Like, some people, they don't like their jobs, or they're just in a unhealthy relationship, so they go to like events, like festivals, not saying they're bad, but they just get so shit-faced and blacked out that like, yeah, they're just trying to escape something.
I have this friend that was an addictive drug user that she told me that the reason why she used these drugs was because at that moment of that high, it gave her that presence of feeling like, after all of this, everything's okay. Like everything's just all right, because it kind of numbed the uncomfortable feelings. So I can totally see, like, in the perspective of using fapping as a way to release tension, I can totally understand what that feeling is. Is that, amongst all the shit that's happening,
Yeah.
this feeling just gives you that whole, like, you know what, everything's actually quite all right.
Yeah, ultimately, we all want to feel like everything's okay. That's we have different methods of reaching that level of reassurance.
I think the hardest part is actually being able to allow the feelings to just be there, let it process, and eventually within time it just disappears, right? The feelings pass.
Yeah. Yeah, most people, they just like have trouble sitting with that tension, but like you said, like allowing it to pass, letting those feelings go through you, basically like just releasing a fart.
Yeah, releasing that tension. But then again, that's the reason why I do it, right? Is to release those uncomfortable feelings.
Yeah.
But what other methods you feel like people use to kind of escape discomfort?
I know my younger brother, he's really into video games. Growing up, he was always like drawn to video games. I feel that's partially my fault because, as a brother, you will want another brother to play with you. And so my brother was so obsessed with video games that like it would be hard for my mom to pull him away from video games. But I think that was probably his way of coping back then, because we were in a pretty like uncertain kind of environment and circumstance. So even now, as an adult, he still plays video games, and there's nothing like wrong with that. But it's just that like, I understand that video games just allow someone to like relax and wind down and not like think so much or feel so stuck in their reality if it's uncomfortable right now. And so I'm able to empathize when people just kind of like want to just chill out and play a video game or something.
What do you think are healthier methods that we can use to, like release tension versus like, doom scrolling is definitely one of them, right?
Social media, that's very prevalent with a lot of young people these days.
What would you say would be better methods?
I did this a few times during last week when I was chasing emotional comfort, but just trying to engage your senses. Like, I know for me, whenever I smell something familiar, it helps me to feel more safe. So what I would do is whenever I come home after a stressful day, I would just light some incense. And so that incense smells really nice to me. And it's just a way of calming my nervous system down. And taking a hot shower, just like letting my body just really like regulate its temperature. So just doing like holistic things like that.
That incense method, I think I want to try that because I actually do have incense, but
Yeah.
I never really thought of it as a way to just wind down and relax. That's actually a really good idea.
Yeah, your sense of smell is very like, what's the word for it? Like very strong, or I don't know. Like, it's a powerful way of like
Bringing you back to the present
bringing
moment.
you back. Yeah.
That's actually quite interesting.
Yeah, very grounding. Derek, what are ways that you use to like I guess to sit with emotional discomfort and heal?
So one big way that really helped me along, like move these feelings along, these uncomfortable feelings, is actually journaling.
That's a good one.
Because when you're writing, like handwriting your words, they kind of bring you a sense of presence because you're forming all these words. And I write in cursive too, so it kind of like is like there's a technique you're using that brings you totally in the moment of forming thought from words. And I really like it. It feels very therapeutic. Even if I have to write these feelings down, like I feel a certain way, I feel anxious because of whatever reason, it just brings you back to that moment where, like overall everything's okay because you're just in that moment. Nothing's actually really happening. You're just journaling. You're just writing words down. Also, I have this app called Endel where it uses sound waves to kind of bring you back to the moment and kind of like, honestly, I feel like it's just washing out the thoughts in your mind because it's so relaxing, and it's using these waves of sound that just totally makes everything feel okay.
Yeah, it's like all like these sensory stimulating activities, right?
Yeah,
that bring us present.
I think it's really about physical senses, using that as leverage to bringing you back to the present moment.
So Derek, what would you say is the mindful reframing for this episode?
So the mindful reframing would be using substances, partying, or constant stimulation as a way to escape discomfort may offer temporary relief, but true healing begins when we pause, turn inward, and face what we're running from with honesty and compassion. Instead of numbing pain, we learn to understand it. And that's where real peace and growth begin. Yeah, so that's it. We'll end it right here.
Nice. And if you guys enjoyed this podcast episode, be sure to give us 5 stars on Spotify as well as Apple Podcast. If you're watching this video on YouTube, hit like as well as subscribe to our YouTube channel. Thank you for listening, and this is your new SideQuest podcast.
SideQuest complete.